You know what they say. They say the eye is the window of the soul. I beg to differ. I think the headlight is the window of the soul. The Kia Soul, especially ones that are sheathed in Neptune blue. Stick with us. I have a real bargain to share with you. Now, friends, do you not have great piles of money to spend on a car? Well, I can sympathize with that. But how about only a mere $27,000, you could get this beautiful, beautiful Kia Soul GT line in Neptune Blue. And I have discovered something about this car. It's a whole lot of car for the money. It offers you great fuel economy, a surprisingly fun to drive performance envelope, and a lot of great practical features, plus about everything you need on your car. I mean, seriously. It's a front driver, doesn't have all-wheel drive, unfortunately, but it has a very stout and sturdy front drive system. You put some good tires on it, you should be able to get through winter just fine. But it has a lot of room for its size. And the thing that, like I said, surprised me the most is it's a lot of fun to drive. It's also kind of, in its own way, a stylish vehicle. But it's also very much a Kia, which means it's very much a Hyundai/Kia, because they're very closely related, one company owning the other. And they have a lot of great features that nobody else has, especially at this price point. So if you will open your mind to what is possible for a more affordable type of vehicle, we're going to have a good time with this car. And let's look a little deeper into our power plant first, because there's something very special about it that I wish to share. Well, okay then. Here we have something special. It is a mere 2 liters. It is a mere 4 cylinders. But the thing I like about it is this is a completely normally aspirated engine. It has no turbocharger, which is getting unusual, honestly, especially with inline 4-cylinder engines these days. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means it has a lot less power. However, it also means you have a lot less complexity. Whee! And because of that, this is a much more reasonable engine in terms of maintenance, and in terms of overall simplicity. There's so much less it has to have on it because it's not turbocharged that it's kind of refreshing in its way. As you can see, it has, I've first noticed this on some Hyundais, but it has this massive superstructure here, which is basically just an engine mount. But it is an engine mount designed to isolate all the vibration from the engine, and it does a very good job. It doesn't get rid of all of it by any stretch, but it's actually a very smooth runner. And it has all the other things that we're starting to get used to as far as typical, including it's got this completely composite air intake system For our air comes, it's very straightforward. It doesn't have to go back around to a turbocharger or anything like that. Or the other way around, actually, the air comes from, well, you know what I mean. But over here we have our air cleaner, our little air box here, which Kia recommends total quartz, by the way. It goes right down in here and boom, right into your intake. Very, very straightforward. And that's it. You got your oil check right here. You got your oil fill right here. 0W20 is the flavor. And down here you got your serpentine belt and your alternator. I mean, everything is just right here handy. It's very, very, very simple. I mean, it doesn't mean because it's simple that it is completely skirted the cool stuff. I mean, we do have this wonderful battery koozie, and I am such a fan of these because they just, they're silly and I like them. For your 12-volt battery. Oh, sorry about that. I got in my own shot again. I knew that by mistake quite a bit. So what's the numbers? Well, you get about 147 horsepower at 6,400 RPMs, fairly lofty. And then you get 132 pounds of feet, your foot-pounds, in the torque department at 4,500 RPMs. So it's like a typical four-cylinder engine that's not turbocharged. It's just, that's what it is, that's what it puts out. But so what do you want more? Do you want that? Like I say, having driven it quite a bit, it has plenty of power for everything you're going to need reasonably. And you may not have the low-end grunt and all the wonderful things you'll get from a turbo, but you also don't have the headache that turbos can be. It's just a whole lot of stuff not to go wrong on this engine, which I tell you right now, I'm a big fan of that. I think that's a great way to go. But it has a lot of things that some people think are high dollar items for reasons I've never understood. For example, instead of having a prop rod, it has these nice hydraulics, these little struts to hold the hood open, and a lot of people think that most of the economy cars don't have those because of expense. I don't think the expense is much at all, really, but it has them, which is great. You can open the hood easily with one hand. If you need to do that because your right hand's in a sling because you got it caught in a piece of farm equipment and it twisted it a little bit, and you got torn tendons, that kind of thing. You don't have to worry about that opening the hood to check the oil. So, and it also has this wonderful little insulation pad right here to help keep the volume down. So it sounds fairly quiet in the cabin. And the rest of the cabin is so constructed that it does good. So there you go, a nice, simple inline four, which is something that is so appealing in so many different ways, especially if you're looking for just a good piece of solid transportation to get you around without breaking the bank. There you go. Now let's see what else we can see. The swirling wheel design, one of my personal favorites. These nice little alloy wheels are supporting some very nice Hankook. I love this. They're called Ventus S1 Noble Squareds. Is that what it says? I think that's what it says. Boy, that's a great name. I don't understand it, but there you are. They're 235s, 45s, R18s. So you got your 18-inch wheels on here and a very nice set of tires. For OEM tires, like I say, they keep getting better and better all the time these days. We're going through a period. They'll go cheap again. It's a weird fluctuation. There's a chart somewhere you can look at it. It's got like a curve that goes like up and down and like that over. When manufacturers, for whatever reason, they start putting cheaper tires on their OEM fitment. And but these days, everybody seems to be doing real well with putting good quality tires on that you'll find satisfactory in many, many circumstances. And these Hankooks are just like that. It's a nice little all-season tire that'll do for most of the country. If you need to get something more snow capable and stuff like that, again, because of the size of the tire, it's not going to break your bank to have to put new rubber on this thing, which is great. Plentiful, nice big disc brakes on the sucker. I mean, that's we all need that. By the way, the GT line logo for this particular model is pretty cool, don't you think? Mm-hmm. Whee! Is it electric? No. Does it need to be? No. It's just spring-loaded and up she goes. And we have this little parcel cover that folds up for you. And this is a pretty modest cargo area, but it's still pretty good for a compact car. It's a good utilization overall of the space involved. And what do we have down here? Say it ain't so. We have a temporary spare tire. And all your necessary jack and accoutrements and everything else. None of this temporary. Well, it is temporary. Are you temporary? Yes, you are temporary. None of this ridiculous motility kit stuff. You can actually keep going on your way to work if you have a flat. I love that. That's a big deal. And then now look at this. Oh, the sound system is a Harman Kardon. They are getting so big into the automotive realm, and we're all luckier for it because the sound system on this car is great. There's nothing wrong with it at all. You're not going to boom boom your way through the neighborhood to incommode your fellow travelers, but I tell you what, it's a nice sounding stereo that's perfectly adequate for what you need it for, which is tunes, good tunes. But your 60/40 split back there will give you what you need in terms of additional cargo area. Again, fully functional, just like a little wagon, which is what it is. But it looks like an SUV, but it ain't that. And here's the creme de la creme. There's a lot of great styling going on with this car, but check out this exhaust. I mean, come on. Is that great or what? It looks sort of like a bent up, you know those old USB 2 things that you try to get in, they get bent and you can't fit it in your phone or whatever anymore, whatever you might have. It kind of looks like that, only cooler. It also looks like it could be alien in origin, which, I don't know. That could be frightening. But I mean, that's a good thing to have. Frighten away the people that are following you to your domicile. Excellent idea. Oh, I tell you, they do make it difficult to get this focus just right so you don't have excessive flicker. But this thing likes to flicker, so what are you going to do? Greetings, friends. Welcome to the instrument cluster of the 2023 Kia Soul GT line. GT, of course, stands for Glorious Truckage. No, it doesn't stand for that. But I tell you what, we have interesting things to share with you. This is your standard. Right now we have things primarily focused on our drive modes in terms of what our display is doing. So if we change our drive mode from sport to normal, that's what happens with normal, and that's what happens with sport. Basically, they're the same thing. And that's kind of your choices. We have a theme selection, and I'll decouple it from the drive mode, and theme A is this one, and theme B is this one. Come on, theme B. There we go. Kind of a strange pinkish red color. And then theme C, boy, it doesn't like my finger. It's kind of a green thing. I would call this the eco mode, except near as I can tell, it doesn't really have an eco mode. It's always, every day is eco mode day. But then when you get back and link it to the drive mode, it'll go to whatever drive mode you happen to be in. Right now we're happen to be in normal. So what else do we have that's great? Well, considering this is not a real costly item, you have a lot of good technology here, included right down here, your roadside sign helper that tells you approximately, they're usually pretty accurate actually, the speed limit sign, what it's telling you, where you're driving, so that you'll hopefully behave yourself, not get yourself in too much trouble with the gendarme. And let's see, what else do I have that I can show you? Is there a heads-up display? No! That makes me happy. But we also have rear occupant alert, wireless charge. Oh, I'll get in that in a minute. And also we have a setting you can put on. When you put the car in reverse, it will automatically turn on the rear windshield wiper. That's a nice feature during the times of the year where you have a lot of precipitation, which here is all of them. So that's not a bad feature at all. But anyhow, it's very straightforward, this, and if you don't like digital and you prefer something in an analog type of situation, well, you're out of luck. Because this is the way they do it on this car, and you get used to it. It's not a problem. Your RPMs just go up like that. I like writing them around a dial myself, but there you go. That's all right. We can live with that. And as we migrate, first I want to start over here because this has a really interesting decor. You know, this kind of triangular thing right here reminds me. This is your Harman Kardon, by the way, your speaker. Reminds me of the tailpipe on this thing, which is so unique and beautiful. But interesting trim, don't you think? We'll migrate over to our main display area, which is primarily what we all love to call landscape. It's very widescreen though, and it's a very high quality display. It looks great. And if we go over to setup, and let's say just vehicle, which I was just playing with just a second ago, here's all your driving convenience, driving safety, and it has a good complement of a lot of the latest tech as far as your blind spot warning and stuff like that. I think it has blind spot warning. Do you have blind? Yes, of course you do. Of course you do. But we also have the one thing, you know, the one thing I don't like about Kias, and the same thing with a lot of Hyundais, and this is a minor thing, but when you put it in radio mode, oops, my God, that sounds like Dragnet. This little display here that shows you the station you're on, which has an old style tube like radios used to have even before I was around, really. Although I do remember you have your radio or your TV would go out and you could take what is clearly a burned out bulb in the back of it, and you could unscrew that, or pop that out actually, and take it up to the local store, and they had a big thing and you could plug it in and test it, and if it said bad, that would tell you, okay, it's bad. So then you just look up and get another replacement one from a supply they had, and then you go home and plug it back in, and you just fixed your television. That was a long time. That was the 60s, and I think I was like a toddler. An unusually intelligent toddler until something went horribly wrong a few years later, and I'm as you see me now. So, but anyway, I don't really like this display very much. I don't know why. I had a real hard time too. It's not the most intuitive thing in the world, installing your favorite stations down here either, for something that is so otherwise beautifully executed, straightforward, and simple. I mean, you do still have, you know, your tuning knob over here, and you do still have your volume and everything else here, but yeah, what are you going to do with that? I mean, it's crazy. So anyway, as we migrate down, you shall find the climate control center, and it is, like I said, the most standardized thing we're getting on cars nowadays. But it is like, I haven't been in a vehicle, very few, that don't have a automatic setting on their climate control, and you just set a temperature, and it will try to equilibrate where you're sitting or where your passenger is sitting, depending on which side you're on here, to get the temperature and maintain it no matter what happens to it. If it gets really hot, gets really cold, it'll just take care of it. That is becoming such a standardized thing that I wish some of this would pass its way over to other aspects of cars. Like, oh, I don't know, cruise control and things like that that really matter quite a bit. But, you know, manufacturers, they'll do what they'll do. So here we migrate and we find our shifter, which is a complete mechanical unit. And we have a very good backup camera, as you can see. It doesn't have any what I would call the 360, either virtual or actual cameras on this. It doesn't have that, but you're fine. It's got mirrors. You're fine. And as you can see, the drive setting and everything else, you want to go into manual mode, you just kick it over here and up and down. You have a total of eight, count them, forward speeds to select from. Even though that's one of the things that fascinates me about these continuously variable transmissions is when you put them in manual mode, you might as well have a conventional automatic transmission that you're manually shifting, because they give you the set gearing in like I said, in this case, 8 different speeds. So fascinating that when you think about it. We'll go back down here, and there is your emergency brake, which of course is the electric variety. The mechanical parking brake and emergency brakes are starting to disappear completely, which everyone tells me that is involved with such things. That's actually a very good thing, because they're much easier to maintain and they're much more reliable. That's what they tell me. I don't know if that's true or not. Oh, look here. We have a very nice little cubby in our center console, as you can see. And where are our USBs? Well, they're down yonder, just below our QI charger, huh? There's my phone charging, a USB, and then a USB-C. So that's great. 180 watt 12 volter right down there. Yep. But that's pretty cool. I mean, that's what you need. And of course, your seat heaters, it has 2 settings instead of 3, which I've never encountered that before. And then your drive settings is right here, which I was playing with before. And like I said, there's only 2, normal and sport. I mean, what more do you need? And of course, the sport one probably more than anything else affects the ratios with the transmission. And it's really complex when it comes to a continuously variable about what it actually does. But it improves the performance at a slight reduction of fuel economy. So, but look at the beautiful, beautiful design in this car. It's very futuristic. That's the thing. It has a lot of traditional, what I would call traditional values in cars. But it also has some really, really avant-garde styling cues, right down to the instrument cluster. It's very futuristic. Now up top, of course, we got us a nice little sunroof here with your manual shade. See how that operates? Oh yeah, it operates fine, yeah. And then you have, of course, your ability to open and close said sunroof. Okay, let's go back aft. Now here's the one we're all real curious about. It's a little car, but how little is it really? Well, let's see. Yeah, I know, I got the key right here. Thank you. This is about 82, 83 degrees as far as the degree that the door opens. And it's a fairly wide opening. I mean, it's as good as it can get. There's plenty of headroom when you're getting in. That's where a lot of people bang their heads when they get in. Why do, you know, every time I get these cars, the rear windows are always locked off. This is still locked off. Hang on a minute. Let me figure out what's going on here. How do you work? Yes, you do. Okay. And 100%. 100%. Excellent. I like that. And so will your dogs. Now here, I got the front seat back a fair amount. And look at there. I have very, very good leg room. I have very, very good headroom. And the rake of the seats is such that it's actually very comfortable with a little bit of lumbar support. And a flat floor, totally flat floor. USB-C ports right there. I don't see any ventilation type air conditioning ducts back here, but I mean, who's back here anyway that you worry about? Well, your kids, but it's fine. It's just fine. And as you can see, it has a plentiful amount of room. This material that seems like leather, I'm not sure it is, but what we have is leather and or a man-made material with a textile in between. So you got the best of both worlds, I guess. You can look at it that way, if you're an optimistic person. And then we have, oh, a very, very nice armrest. Sufficient length, nice and high. Boy, this is, you could stand this car for a long trip if you had to. It wouldn't be that bad. I mean, I'm serious. It's quite good. You don't have any cool individual map lights. You have a central light here. What? There we are. But overall, this is a real nice back seat area. I have no problem. I have no truck with this. Great truck line. And what else? Here's this. You can store things in there if you want. Here? No. No, no, no. No, nothing here. Just here. This is obviously kowtowing to this particular passenger, but the passenger that is directly behind the driver does not get the luxury of their own magazine pocket, which now, of course, has been usurped by your tablet pocket, that's what it's become. So, but anyway, nice. I tell you, like I say, for $27,000, I keep repeating this, but it's true. This is a real decent bargain and very well equipped for the price. And this is one of the things that Kias and Hyundais were best known for when they got here. But now the Kia is kind of more of a performance side of the big company Hyundai, and it does perform well, but it's also kind of like a base model of the line that still doesn't really scrimp on the stuff you really need to have a reasonable utilitarian car that's also fun. So there you go. Plenty of soul. All the soul you need. Impressed with this car is this is the first car I've driven in a while that's, I think, very affordable in this day and age. I mean, compared to what everything else is costing, at around $27,000. And it's got a lot of stuff on it. It's got a small non-turbo 4-cylinder engine, but it seems to be plenty peppy when used in cahoots with its electronic, intelligent, continuously variable transmission with 8 manual speeds. And it just seems to, it really gets the job done nicely. Front wheel drive only, this thing, but it's fun to drive, has a lot of space in it, and I would guess, due to the wonderful simplicity of this vehicle, it would not be all that much to maintain as far as your expenses go. And I admire that. I admire that greatly, because sometimes you just need a good solid car. And I see a few of these on the road. I don't see that many, but I'm surprised in a way because it's a bargain. The handling seems quite secure. Steering is interesting because it's very, very reactive in terms of the handling, and everything else is good. I saw somewhere someone was complaining about the ride quality. That's not bad. I mean, I just came out of it depends on what you immediately are comparing it with. I just came out of a Mini Cooper S, and the suspension on that is similar to this in that it's firm, but it's not punishing. This is a much better arrangement, though. Overall, I think ride quality is better. And it's also fairly quiet, as you can tell. I've driven a lot of much more expensive vehicles that are a lot louder than this thing is. It's got a lot going for it. I'm just going to tell you right off the bat. And I will forever be a person who appreciates something that you pay for and you get what you pay for, and more, and more. But the steering is very responsive, almost to the point of being a little bit too flickable for some people, I think. But for me, I like it. And it does fine on the standard rubber. And this is also, one thing I've been talking about is continuously variable transmissions have been evolving steadily in the positive direction, getting better and better all the time. And a lot of the characteristics they had initially when they first started appearing on the market have pretty much been taken care of. One of the most simple, not necessarily associated with performance, is noise. They used to be really howly and loud. And this is a nice quiet transmission on this thing. Boy, that feller is so confused. He's out there with his cross-country ski poles and there's no snow. But there will be tonight. Snow, no snow. Snow, no snow. It's just all over the damn place. I do see so many people out walking with some sort of stick. Some kind of, sometimes they're an artificial man-made stick, like a pole for your cross-country skiing, or then we have a natural stick. I don't know what's going on, man. Something. Oh, I have an annoying spot on my, we don't seem to have any, what have I done wrong? I don't think I have any, there we go. I guess we're about out of fluid there. Oh well. I must speak with the fleet company. I must have. You know, that's the problem with this time of year when you have snow events on and off, and slush events, and rain events, all these things, and sleet, everything mixed in together. You use a lot of wiper fluid. I've usually, if I was designing an automobile, I'd put in the special Northeast package where you have like a 5-gallon windshield washer fluid reservoir. Because I always forget to fill them up. Apparently some other people do too. Bumpy corner. It tracks great, this car. I mean, it's that architecture of a wheel at every corner. Now, as the road gets a little rougher, the ride is a little bit more, let us say, primitive. It's not horrible, but it does bounce around quite a bit. Not bounce around. Nah, that's not what I mean. It's almost, but not quite harsh. It's not great. It's not up to the standard of, say, Mercedes C-Class. But for an economy car, it's fine. It's fine. It's what happens when you want something sturdy and reliable. It doesn't have like automatic dampers and huge elaborate air spring systems. Nah, springs, shock absorbers. Get out of my way, lady. You don't want to mess with the soul. The dread pirate Roberts has come for your soul. Or actually, I already have one, so I'm fine. I'm good. I'm good. Whee! Yeah, I tell you, it still clings the road really well. The suspension, while it can get a little bit on the harsh side and the rougher stuff, it tends to maintain control. It's not bouncing you all over the road. That's why I was quick to correct saying bouncy earlier, because it's not like a bouncy thing. There's some suspensions that are pretty firm, and when they start to bounce, you actually, the control of the car is not as good, and the tracking of the car is not as good. And that's something you want to avoid whenever you can, because none of us needs that. I just can't see this vehicle being a difficult one to deal with. In terms of maintenance and everything else, I just can't see it. It would be a costly car to own. Unless things break on it all the time, but I doubt that. I really don't think that happens. I'll have to look into this just for fun. Ah, there's one of me. There was so much soul on the highway. Now, once we get up to about 62 miles an hour, there is some wind noise. I haven't done a whole lot of highway stuff in this yet. I will, though. So this is where a lot of that, you kind of expect a certain amount of wind noise when you get to a certain speed in a car that's basically a big box. And the faster, a lot of times with a stiffer suspension, the faster you go, the better the suspension works. This is kind of the opposite. It doesn't seem as happy when you're going over bumps at a higher speed. Then it starts to get a little bit busy, a little squirrely, a little unkempt, if you will. But I still like driving it, though. I still find it to be a rewarding driver. I guess, you know, I've always kind of liked these smaller smaller SUVs that have a lot of room in them, because I think they're a pretty practical vehicle. Now, so far, according to this, I'm getting about 25 miles per gallon, which is about what I expect with this kind of thing. And that's good, but I'd be much happier if it was getting about 30 miles per gallon. And we shall see at the end of the duration, at the end of my testing interval, the week I will have with the vehicle, we will see what the mileage is, because it's going to get a lot of mixed miles on it. Some highway, just a little bit of urban, perhaps. A lot of country roads like you're on right now. That's the bulk, I would say. And then there's a lot of idling involved with these things. I usually end up doing a fair amount of idling just because I'm doing things, examining things and stuff, and I need power. I need power to everything. But when you have a car that does a lot of things well, you can overlook some of the things it doesn't do as well, provided that it's not one of the primary mover things, like engine, drivetrain, ride, and handling. Boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, and the band played on. So, I have noticed, this is something you don't often notice when you're reviewing something, but I noticed by seeing other Kia Souls on the road that it really, the seats tend to be mounted such a way, front and back, that you really do have a tremendous amount of headroom. Why, you put on your 10-gallon Stetson if you so desire, drive with your car, and drive like this, and then boom, you got your hat on and everything's good with the world. You got all this headroom, but you don't have a whole lot of top heaviness that you might think would be a byproduct of having such a tall cabin and a low seat. Entirely possible for 2023 if there is an electric version of this car. I got the impression that maybe there isn't. I was looking up some specifications because I was looking at the electric Kona and the non-electric Kona, which is part of the Hyundai family, and the electric version was only about 500 pounds heavier, so the battery is not near as big as, say, on the Ioniq, which is about 1,000 pounds. The battery. That's one of the things they actually tell you in this specifications. A lot of manufacturers. That's another area I wish we had more standardization. I wish manufacturers would tell you. We're required to publish a whole lot of information in their specifications, because otherwise, if for some reason they just don't want to, they won't tell you. But some manufacturers do bother to tell you on their electric vehicles what the battery itself weighs. And in the Ioniq 5, it weighs about 1,000 pounds. And in these other vehicles, the Kona, like I said, is about 500. And the 2022 Kia Soul Electric, it's about 500 pounds heavier. So that's interesting. It's a smaller battery. Pardon me. So here we're doing the bumpy curve test coming up here. If some of these people get a move on. Uh-oh, that's good. This fella in front of me is getting a move on. Again, this has what I would describe as almost anything that's in the compact entry-level type class, which this vehicle very much is, in my opinion. You have a certain type of ride that is just pretty much what you get on every small economy car. It's firm, not too punishing, but on some vehicles it's what I would call crude. This is interesting because you do from time to time get some pretty good shocks through the cabin, through the suspension, but for the most part it does a good job. And when you hit a little pothole or something like that, it does a very nice job of absorbing the shock. Compliant is what I would call it, but with a degree of firmness that's great. Now let's check out our bumpy corner handling. Whee! Yeah, it skates right over it. Another advantage to lightweight. A little bit of brake, not much. Yeah, it's not the best that I've seen through here, but it's perfectly acceptable. And the thing, the big plus in the handling on this Soul is the steering. There goes my groceries flinging all over the back. God, I never do tie stuff down worth a damn. I need to work on that. So one of my list of personal improvements that need to be made is I need to tie my cargo down better. See, listen to it now. God, once it breaks loose, it breaks loose. As long as it doesn't break the... We're about to have a big storm, and in the tradition of human beings in America and probably elsewhere, you're supposed to panic and go to the grocery store and just buy everything. Fortunately, I didn't buy everything. But I bought 3 days worth of stuff because we could be limited in our movements a little bit. But we'll see. My wife has some stuff she absolutely has to do tomorrow in the middle of a snowstorm, so we'll see how that goes. We have vehicles that can deal with that. It's just going to be a real pain in the butt for her to have to do it. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. That's why we have these vehicles to begin with. To ensure we will still have a degree of mobility when necessary. Another thing I like about the suspension on this car is it seems to be pretty planted when you go over these little heaves and things that would tend to unload and then rapidly reload the suspension. And it handles it very nicely. Again, it's another function of lightweight that is to your advantage. I recommend that. That's why we're using more and more high-strength steel and things like that, and aluminum especially, a lot of aluminum, to make these vehicles lighter. Because not only is there a benefit in terms of fuel economy, but there's also a benefit in terms of handling. And with some of them, it actually increases your usable payload. Although, why that isn't put into better effect on pickup. What pickups say they can carry, and then what the actual individual truck you bought can carry, there's hundreds, usually hundreds of pounds of difference. And I don't know what the manufacturers are doing, quoting a number that is basically, I guess, if you don't have anything on the car, any kind of upholstery that has like some sort of material like leather that's not exactly the lightest thing in the world, but that adds weight. Add weight. Oh goodness gracious! Then you start adding all your options. You know what? We're going to go to manual. What gear am I in? What gear am I in? I don't see where the gear display is. I don't see a gear display at all. It's not telling me what gear I'm in. There we are. It's way up in the upper left quadrant of the center part. 6, 7, 8. You know, I could swear the Monroney on this said it was a 7-speed intelligent CVT, 7 speeds when you're in manual mode. It's 8. This car has 8 forward speeds. Could have been the printing on the Monroney is not that. I've been getting it. That's been a trend lately of the printing not being very legible. But there's our 8 speeds. Now we're back to drive. I don't know what it does when it does that. When you go into a manual mode and you have set speeds on continuously variable transmissions, because I guess it just, I don't know what it does. How much of it is like, when you have continuous belts, there is no set gearing that it can go into, so it's basically, I guess, simulating, and it stops the belt at set intervals and just keeps it there, and the ratio on the cones that drive the transmission don't change when you're in that mode. I guess that's the only reasoning I can come up with. Now then, our cruise control is activated, and Distance 4. It has 4 distances instead of 3. That's very good that you can select. Oops. There we go. Oops. There we go. That's the speedo. Boy, I tell you, all these little thumb thingies, it takes you a minute to orient yourself exactly which is which. Like I said, I would love some standardization, because some people put the cruise control on the right side of the steering column, some put it on the left. And speaking of standardization, how about saying the same number of speeds for your variable automatic transmission when it's in manual mode, not say it has 6 or 8 or 7, or I have no idea how that happened. Anyway, your 2023 sold GT line has a base price of $23,390, which bumps up to $27,220 with destination and all that good stuff. So, bargain? Absolutely. I think you should go out and buy several for all your friends. It's a real nice little compact, and I enjoyed driving it. And speaking of driving, you be careful out there. We'll catch you next time. Gesandt geworden ist viel ein